If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and jump in. It's just a bit of a trigger warning on some of the work that we'll do when we're looking at things like social media and threat assessment. I think today's program is going to feel a little bit like drinking from the fire hose. A lot of good information. Talk about the nature of the problem with social media, written threats, and really when we look at the threat analysis of things that are being communicated to us from people, understanding that whether it's on social media, an email, spoken verbally, recorded in a YouTube video, there's some interesting distinctions to take into account the way people are communicating. The left of bang comes from this law enforcement military background, and it's a concept they use frequently when the bang goes off, the big thing, the problem, the case that's coming in front of us, and we think about our response. So when we look at social media, a written comment or journal or an email, it gives us insight into how that person's feeling about things. And that's an important piece here. This was around a date of graduation or something at the end of the semester where there was going to be a shooting or some very specific information written up there. So trying to determine, is this an active threat that has a likelihood of being carried out, or was this something done to intimidate or scare people? Getting the full context and not just accepting things at face value has been a game changer in the cases that I've looked at and reviewed. One of the bigger mistakes teams make is they prejudge and say, this is what I think this is. So instead of having rival plausible hypotheses that you're testing evidence to see if it lines up, you just jump to a conclusion. I'm going to be a professional school shooter. There's a difference between feeling threatened and actually being threatened. They each have never encountered an elephant. As they do come up to an elephant they can't see, so they touch, and one touches the tail. It says this situation is a rope. One touches the tusks and sees it as a spear, the trunk a snake, the ears a fan, the side of the elephant as a rock wall, and the legs as a tree. People in the community are worried, they're concerned, they're watching the news. There's a research term called probability neglect that folks fall into, and they just want to be kept safe. They end up doing things or encouraging things to be done that sadly many times make the situation worse or more dangerous. In a case that's in front of us, what do we know? What do we not know that we need to find out? And what do we think we know that we need more evidence to support or to remove from that space? The yelling fire in a crowded theater is going to have a pretty heavy conduct piece to it. We have punitive, developmental, and restorative justice. In a case like this, we might have a punishment for the student for doing something outside the code of conduct. I share your frustrations with these are very emotional cases, which is all the more reason, I think, to make sure that we have a bit of a governor in the system. They're willing to die for their cause. So a lot of the things that we found in our book related to this. One of the bifurcations that you're trying to decide when you're looking at threat assessment is, if is there a threat here? Is it transient in that nature or substantive, where the person is basically having a larger plan to hurt this person and is going about that in a more structured and methodical way? Hunters are the ones who are often hiding. They're concealing it like a cat prowling through the Serengeti, jumping out at the last minute, attack their prey. Many of us might have darker thoughts of hurting or harming someone else, but we don't do that because of the cost. It's why we don't punch the barista at Starbucks or Roma Joe's. Maybe we're really frustrated and we feel like we do want to punch somebody, but we don't because we'd lose our job or get arrested. So the social constructs keep us focused and behaving well. Just some quick comments about social media and threat, that there's sometimes these feelings that if someone is playing violent video games, somehow that equates to a higher level of danger. When you think about this, think about, it's not just that are they playing a violent video game, it's what's their emotional state. How are they playing? Are they fantasizing about hurting other people? That direct threat is really something that occurs fairly late in the game. The only time you're going to find out you're doing that wrong is when you're being sued. They might be someone deteriorating on the D scale, frustrated, scared, worried, angry, and posting or writing things of concern. On the E scale, we start to say, are there groups that they're targeting or upset at that we might be at? When you're using the rubric, my advice to you is to make sure that you're using it consistently on every case and that you're giving those 3 scores with each time you do a case with the directionality of where that's headed. When a case goes sideways and you're in a potential lawsuit situation, that's a dangerous place to be. Is there in the social media posting or in the written journal or in the email, does it say something like, if you don't give me the things I want, then I'm going to do this? Is there that conditional ultimatum? These were more messaging cases where people were talking back and forth to each other. Someone was making an argument that all Zionists should be killed because they're killing Palestinians in Gaza. Someone who posts something online who says, I hate my life at this school. No one cares about me. I'm never going to graduate. I'm going to die. And maybe they all should die too. So if I take that same social media threat, my life's going horribly. No one cares about me. I'm failing all my classes. I should die. I feel like dying. Everyone at the school should die as well. So is it actually leakage, or are they trying to troll and get a reaction? The justification for the attack was around the election, the 2020 election where Trump lost, and they were feeling like Texas was going to go blue. He was arguing for all of this to kill and scare people to not go out and vote, especially Hispanic individuals. Is there a narrowing onto a single person? And finally, is there a mention of previous attacks? So while they might not have done something that is likely going to move forward with a harm or an attack or hurting other people, they've had a disruptive behavior that's had a community impact that we need to mitigate. And now you're hearing from the faculty, we want them out of our class. They can't be in our class anymore. Getting conduct on board earlier and often doesn't mean that I'm trying to get students in trouble more. It means that we're holding them to account. Knowing the difference between what I'd call a triage assessment and this full violence risk assessment is another important piece. If we're seeing a case come into us on the care team, part of what we're doing in this threat assessment, right, is what are the risk factors and what are the protective factors or the anchor factors? What's going on in this entirety of the case? If the case has nothing to do with a weapon, we still should be asking weapons access questions. That is going to be a garbage in, garbage out kind of case. The kind of information we ask and determine is going to set the stage for how do we handle and what's the output look like. I'm upset and sincerely outraged with the shameful, uncalled for way you treated us. I waited hours to create this email. I do not like to communicate when I'm upset. I spend my time in prayer with God this entire day. You just know that God is on our side and you will be weighed in judgment.